on LinkedIn, and I was in the middle of a very stressful, strenuous job search. And I was looking at a company called Empathy, and I was just so impressed by what they were doing in this kind of proactive approach to grieving. And I was really reflecting on the fact that I had, prior to my mom passing, we had been in a basically a 5-year preemptive grieving process as she was, battling, and I was like, "Man, that would have been so amazing and so helpful," and while I was there, I saw your podcasts, and I just was like, "That is so amazing that this topic is getting some discussion, and it's no one's favorite topic." It's not the best party conversation starter or a corporate icebreaker fun fact, so I was really impressed by the fact that you're taking a topic that is really heavy and making it really relatable for people to access.
Mm. Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate you being willing to come on and share a little bit about something that is very difficult, and like you said, not a lot of people are talking about it.
Mhm.
But it is important for us to have those conversations so that way we know that we're not alone. While everybody's journey is different, we know that there are unique things to it, and we can also learn from each other and help feel that empathy and that isolation. So just really want to like get into, you said you had the 5-year kind of anticipatory
Mhm.
grief thing going on, which was very similar to me. So it was 5.5 years dealing with my wife's metastatic breast cancer. So is that kind of anticipation of when's this going to happen? But maybe give us a little bit of like what that experience was for you having that 5 years until you lost.
Yeah, it was so I was getting ready to board a flight to San Antonio for work, and I got a phone call from just an unknown number, in Bakersfield, California. And my family, my mom and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles live there, and so I was thinking, "Okay, I should probably answer this, not let it go to voicemail," and I got a phone call, and it was from a doctor in the ICU, and he said, "Your mom came in by ambulance,
No.
and we don't really know what's happening right now, but she's hemorrhaging, and she's not conscious,
Oh
and
shit.
she's lost a lot of blood, and you're listed as next of kin, and I need you to authorize, a blood transfusion, immediately." And I'm like, "Whoa, who are you? What's happening?" So he said, I don't know, but right now I just need you to say yes, that we can give her blood products, and we'll try to figure out what's going on, and I'll call you back once we know more." So, those first couple hours were really stressful because I didn't get phone calls back right away. I just kept
Mm.
getting calls from nurses asking, "Can I give more blood? Can you approve more
Jeez.
blood?" And I'm thinking, how much how much more blood can you put in? Like, there's only
Right.
so much. And then by midnight that night, they said she had lost a significant amount. They had given her 8 transfusions to that point. She was not conscious. She was incredibly ill. She was, in the ICU, and they said, "You need to get here as soon as possible." So I canceled my work flight to San Antonio and changed it and went to California and showed up at the, emergency room at about, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning or something, and stood there with the doctors and nurses, and they said that she had had burst esophageal varices.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
basically, a pressure in the liver and the lower digestive tract builds up, and the little varices in the digestional esophagus, lower and upper GI tract, they swell, and if they get to a point where the blood pressure is too high, they just burst, causing this hemorrhaging. And
Wow.
they said, typically in these situations, people get care almost immediately, but, your mom had a delayed amount of care, and we're not sure that she's going to wake up. So they had us meet with the palliative care team. They had us meet with chaplains. All of our family came in. My brother came from Washington, all her, nieces, nephews. We were all just waiting in this hospital for about 4 days. It was actually her birthday. She was in a coma, over her birthday. And so we were just sitting bedside, just waiting, waiting. And then on the fifth day, she just woke up.
No way.
We were
Oh my
getting
gosh, wow.
Yeah, we had conversations about, she wanted us to not keep her on sustaining measures. She wanted to donate her body to science. She was an incredible forensic nut, like before it was popular. Like now it's every, true crime show and podcast. Never, it wasn't like that before. So she was super obsessed with forensics. But then she woke up and then
Wow.
we were on a totally different, trajectory. It was like, well, how do we get you better? How do you heal? How do you recover? So for the majority of the next while, she was in and out of hospitals, in and out of intensive care. She had several, other hemorrhagic episodes. And then she was also battling, multi-organ failure with type 2 diabetes. And so every time the phone rang, right, we had no idea what the call was going to be. She was living with my brother for a period of time, and it just got so intense. Her care needs were so intense that she went into like residential living, and she was doing fine in residential living as, somebody was managing her medicine and her diets and things like that. And she just decided that she was over that and she wanted to have her independence. She wanted to live
Mm.
alone. She wanted to be by herself. And against all begging and pleading that she not do that for her best interest, she decided she wanted to move out. She wanted to be on her own, get an apartment, have her
Wow.
independence. And within, I think, a month of doing that, she was gone. She was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment to follow up. And unfortunately, my brother went to pick her up from the doctor's appointment. And when he went into her apartment, she had passed away sometime between when we talked to her last at about 9 o'clock that night and when he was set to pick her up at 8 o'clock the next morning.
Holy cow.
No.
I definitely just want to pause for a minute. That is a wild story. I appreciate you sharing that. It is, I feel like there was just so many moments there that you literally overnight could have lost her. So
Yeah.
dealing with that for 5 years
Yeah.
is that's an extreme level of anticipatory grief. I kind of just want to acknowledge that. I can't even imagine uh the amount of like angst that you would have. And you said you weren't living near your mom, right? Because you were going to Texas and she was in California.
Yeah, I live in Arizona and she was living in California with my grandparents. She was there and she originally we grew up in Washington and she
Mhm.
left Washington when I was a senior in high school to take care of her mother who had been really ill. And as she was there taking care of her mom, her dad fell ill as well. So he had
Mm.
passed and she was there taking care of her mom. And then, just her health had, really deteriorated to the point where she got to where she was, sick all the time, and she was having these minor episodes. She would call them episodes, but she was basically coughing up blood, not knowing why,
Oh,
um,
Oh.
and just kind of writing it off as, "Oh, it's not that," wasn't that big of a deal, and then to the
Mm.
point where it just became an absolute, emergency situation.
Or
so living in Arizona and like having to deal with that, having your phone ring, have, something as drastic as that told to you. What was that experience like being away and knowing kind of the condition your mom was in?
Yeah, when it first happened, I was just in a state of shock, really, and from the point I was already packed to go somewhere else, but I just took that suitcase with me to the airport, and I was taking phone calls from the emergency department at the airport. I was taking calls from my family, in the air for 3 hours, not knowing if I was gonna land and get horrible news. Like, I had no idea, and, getting to the hospital and meeting the doctors, and it was all just incredibly surreal. And then over the next couple years, it just became a very normal
Yeah.
experience in that I would
Mm,
get a call, you know, your mom had to be taken by ambulance, or your mom is in the emergency room, or, we need you to give us permission to do, XYZ, or doctors would call and say, this is our treatment, but it, she doesn't want to do that, or can you talk to her? And then I would travel up there, and I kind of felt like I had to play the role of like the big bad daughter that comes in from out of town and just strolls in,
yeah.
and what's going on here, and what is the plan, and what are we doing? And talking to doctors and nurses and specialists and paramedics and just run the gambit of care providers. And but the call that came in from my brother that morning, it was really I was at work. And the night before, we had all 3 of us had a pretty contentious conversation about how when we can't reach her and we have to
Mhm.
call her multiple times, like, we start to worry, like, do we need to send somebody? Because, there were situations where my brother unfortunately did have to, go find her to make sure she was okay. And I told her, I said, "We do this because when we don't know what's going on, we have to assume that one day we're going to find you, passed away." And then the very next morning, he went there to take her to a doctor's appointment, and
No
that's
way.
exactly what happened. Um,
Wow.
and so I just felt like it's just this incredible sinking feeling for my brother because he was there just experiencing all of it. And I was experiencing it too, but in a very different way. So I was just like, I stepped into more of a, from that point on, like, well, he needs a mom,
Yeah.
like, yeah, he doesn't have a mom, so I have to step in and be like a mom.
I my dad passed away from lung cancer, and I was en route to California actually, so I'm in New York, and I'd have to fly back and forth for work,
Mhm.
and I was getting ready to land in San Francisco. I was like an hour out, and my sister's texting me. She was in Florida where my dad was, and she was like, "You got to get here now. The nurses are saying you need to get here now. It's not going to be long." So I had that like a similar experience. So I like landed,
Mhm.
went right to the ticket counter. I'm like, I need a fucking ticket. I got to get to Florida.
Yeah.
And then just I flew for it was like 20 hours or something to go back
Oh my
coast to
god.
coast. And I landed and he lasted another 3 months.
Oh my
It's just
goodness.
like to be in the air and to not know what
Yeah.
is going on, you feel so helpless, like more helpless than anything because you can't even like do anything. You can't call anybody. You can't clean. You can't do anything to like get that energy out.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what that would have been like. But I have a potentially maybe an odd question, but in my experience, I've seen quite a few people die. Do you think that your mom knew that the end was coming and that's why she wanted to go be alone?
I think what it really was is that and I've had this experience with a couple other people in that we we wanted the fight and the battle to be one direction, and she was over it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
we wanted her to see the specialists and change the diet and change the lifestyle and be,
Yep.
stronger and healthier and more, spend more time with her grandkids and spend more time with us in a really healthy way. And she was just like, "It's my life, and this is
Mm,
where it's at right now, and I just want to do what I wanna do. I don't wanna be on anybody's schedule. I don't wanna be on anybody's routine." And she was so, so thrilled to have that independence because she moved, right out of high school into a marriage to a military member and right into, having 2 kids, right into raising 2 kids, so there never was a period of time where she just had her own, space.
yeah.
And then, being in residential living for 5 years pretty much was just exhausting, and dealing with the coming and going and the sickness and everything that, so she just I think she was just to the point where she was like, "If that's what happens, then That's what happens.
My wife got to that same point. I found out after she died that she had told my sister, like, "I don't wanna do this anymore. I'm done."
Yeah.
She never told me that. She tried to protect me as much as she could, but there was that same conversation throughout the years of, like, "Do this, take this supplement, eat this way, let's go do this, let's go to this doctor, let's go
Mhm.
get a second opinion." And it got to the point where I was becoming obsessive with it. I was, like, reading as many books, and, like, to me, in that moment, I was just like, You need to do everything you can to stay here with me and the kids, and if you choose not to do any of this, then you're choosing not to be with us." And I got so frustrated and so resentful,
Mhm.
and we eventually got to the point where she was like said the exact same thing your mom said. She's like, "I need to live my life the way I need to live my life. I don't wanna do all that stuff. I wanna enjoy the last remaining years of my life." And I was like, "Fuck, yes, you're right." Like, I couldn't
Yeah.
see that perspective. I was so caught up in my own world that it was hard to see that perspective.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I'm an obsessive person by nature, like, I have OCD by diagnosis, but I would research, I'd be up at 2 o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
researching, like, trials for, cirrhosis or liver transplants or, and then she would, you know, change her DNR status every couple months to do not, and then she would change it back, and then she would
Oh,
change, and so I'm like, I don't know what to do, and I would, say, "Please come live with me and I'll take care of you," and she
Yeah.
was like, "No way. You will treat me like one of your kids, and I'll be on this whole schedule, and I won't be allowed to eat the things I wanna eat and do the things I wanna do," and I would just be so angry that all the answers are here, and you could do all of these things, and you just don't want to, and, you know, we
Yep.
just it's not, it might feel like time for them, but it's never feels like it's, time for us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
it's a hard thing to let go of.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. So, oh, and I wanted to ask too, when did your mom pass? What year?
She passed in December 2019.
Okay, 2019. Okay, so yeah, still pretty recent. 5 years.
Yep, just had 5 years.
And that's, like, right as pandemic was hitting.
Yes.
So, not only did you
Yes.
it's kind of been a little bit interesting to hear from people who lost someone, like, right before, and CJ's in that boat. Well, one yeah, just no, you like, that same year, basically, less than a
Yep,
year later.
2020.
Like, people that have lost someone during start,
Mhm.
middle, end of COVID and, not around a global pandemic.
Mhm.
Certainly a different experience to navigate as well, because at a time when you probably need other people, at the same time, it's like when you need other people, but also when you need your own space? So I think I could see so many positives and negatives to it, if you will, but probably far more negatives in my personal experience. But
Yeah, I there were 2 moments, like, right around the pandemic where I had that thought, like, "Okay, she 100% would have been, like, a patient 0 because she
Yep.
wouldn't have
yeah,
done the vaccine, she wouldn't have done the mask mandate, she still wanted to go to the grocery store and the gas station, or do all these things, like, talk to all these people and pet all the dogs," and I'd be like, you wouldn't have been able to do any of that." Like,
Yeah.
the first week of the pandemic, it was awful for everyone, obviously, but I'm grieving. I just got everybody got sent home, so I'm at home with just my family. My daughter got appendicitis,
Oh my gosh.
and so we had to go to the hospital, and the hospital was on full COVID lockdown. Everyone's in the white hazmat suits and the masks, and I just had to be quarantined to her little recovery room, so they took
Mhm.
her, and I couldn't go with her, and they brought her back, and we just had to stay in this one little room the entire time, and all I wanted to do was, like, call my mom and be like, "Mom, this is horrible, and the doctors didn't listen to me when I told them she had appendicitis in the emergency room," and I had to yell at an ultrasound tech, and she would say, "Of course you yelled at an ultrasound tech," and, you know, that's all I wanted, and I couldn't
Yeah.
do it, and it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah. So it was my wife was dying during the pandemic and then did die. So I wasn't allowed to
So
go to
you
the
couldn't see
hospitals.
her? Ugh.
No, I would have to drive her and just sit in the car waiting when she was in treatment, and then
Mhm.
she eventually had ascites, so she was getting drained every week, and, like, I
Mhm.
just was never allowed to be there. It was horrible. But you mentioned, like, wanting to call your mom in those moments, and I'm wondering, what was it like, and I'm gonna say the silence after you lost her. Like, for me, coming back home and
Mhm.
having that silence, or you have those moments, you have the routine of things where you would have normally picked up the phone and called your mom. What was that experience like? What did that look like to experience that sudden gone?
Yeah, I mean, we had a complicated relationship, obviously,
Mm,
in the sense, like, there was just a massive geographical space in between us, with her living in California or Washington and me in Arizona for such a long time, but we talked on the phone all the time. I would be driving kids to sports practices and telling her about my day or things that were going on, or, "Oh, we got a new puppy," or, "Oh, you gotta come, see the kids play soccer," or, "I got a new job." Just there's this there's a story that cracks me up about her because I was at work and I got 5 calls in a row from her, and I was hysterical. I was in the middle of
mm,
a meeting, and I'm like, "I got 5 calls." I'm like, "I have to leave. Something is happening. It's gonna be." And I get her on the phone finally. I'm like, "Mom, are you okay? What hospital are you at? Did you go the ambulance?" She's like, "No, I have to tell you something." Like,
no.
"What?" She's like, "I just saw a movie trailer where Matthew McConaughey is a stripper." I'm like, "Mom,
No way.
I
You're
just
like, "I've
left
been fearing for your life over here."
Yeah.
Mom, I just left a 200-person meeting thinking you were dying again, and you wanna tell me about Magic Mike? Like,
Oh my
that
gosh,
does
that's
not
amazing.
warrant 5 calls in a row. It doesn't."
No.
But just things like that, like, she'd call and ask me, like, "Who's that guy in that show that I like?" And or, just it was absolutely nothing or it could be absolutely everything, right? Like, other relatives passing away or, her mom passed away before she did, and so I had to go to California and be, like, the family representative, right? Because my brother
Yeah.
couldn't travel and she couldn't travel, and so there was lots of conversation, like, what did people say? What were they wearing? What'd you guys eat? And, like, just so there was constant conversation, and a lot of times too, it was, playing mediator between her and my brother, and they have different, ideas and concepts, and just living together again as, roommates and not like a mom and a son was, like, a complicated dynamic, so but yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about everything, and even now, on especially, like, on my birthday, I don't get calls for her singing me happy birthday, and I don't get those, like, little moments that you just take so for granted when they happen.
Yeah. What did you do to fill that space?
For the first little while, it was really difficult. The anxiety really took a very strong hold of me, and I was feeling just untethered. So I was like, "I need to go to see somebody." So I went to a counselor and I was like, "Hey, I can't sleep. I can't function. That's all I can think about is those 12 hours between when I talked to her and when I got that phone call. And I can't stop thinking about the words that I said or what I could have said differently or, why did it happen now and not, like there was just this massive weight of unanswered questions and no amount of asking them was going to get me an answer. And I went down, an obsessive pathway of trying to see if there was anything
Yep.
from like a negligence or a malpractice that happened that led to this scenario. And then I was like, okay, I need to do something healthier. So I was writing a lot.
Mm,
I was writing and submitting to, writing to different like online publications that do like lifestyle or like mommy blogging type of things. So I'm a writer, by nature, and I hadn't been writing very much, and so
mm.
I had told, you know, my family, "I'm gonna start doing some writing as, like, a healthy outlet." So, that was one of the things that that I did to kind of channel some of that anxiety. But definitely seeing somebody was number one.
Interestingly enough, yeah, I write and I wrote through all of it and continue to do that.
That's one of the things that triggered the day after.
That's right.
I love that.
The obsessive nature of those ruminations and thoughts can be so challenging.
Yeah.
Early on, I would replay every single conversation and situations. I would replay the moment that she died, looking for clues, looking for answers, looking for ways in which I was wrong and what I could have done better and how we should have spent the time. And it has been 4 years of that to varying degrees. The health anxiety now that I developed after losing her, and then my son had a tumor 6 months after she died.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I like developed this crazy health anxiety. So that obsessive nature of the thoughts, I'm just now finally getting myself to go on medication to help with that. I'm at the very beginning of this journey, and it has been a little bit rough. But yeah, I agree. Like seeing somebody, having somebody help work through those ruminations, especially if you have OCD, which yeah is not fun to live with.
Yeah, the health anxiety is, I mean, if they gave out WebMD PhDs, like my friends joke because I will like diagnose them like, oh, I think you have, this or oh, it could
Hmm.
be this, and like let's dig into it. Or even for myself, I'm like, after my mom passed, and then pretty much all of the females in my family had passed in a short period of time, and I was like, why
Mm,
is this happening? So I went and did like the 23andMe with like the full health. Like I need to know my entire lineage of like what is possible and how do I prepare for it. And yeah, the health anxiety, especially during COVID, was really, really bad.
do you get anxious when you get phone calls?
I still do. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, same.
My one friend has that as well. Like, it was a similar situation where was getting phone calls from doctors and, like how Apple has like silence. She's like, I can't do it. Like, even
Yeah,
now, she's passed, but
Mhm.
like, I just can't, I don't want to miss, I don't want, like, what if I miss an important phone call? And I feel like I have a little bit of that, even though I didn't have any sort of situation where like, I mean, I didn't have a cell phone when my mom died. So, but there's still that element of like missing that moment, which I feel like some of that, like, ruminations that we were talking about, like, also is maybe triggered by that. Like, oh, a lot of my, like, head stuff in terms of, like, thinking like, overthinking is, like, did we make the most of that moment? Like, shit, what
yeah,
if we don't have this moment again? Like, it's like, okay, just fucking relax because 'cause you're overthinking, like, not living in the moment, that you're, like, not actually living in the moment. And I always catch myself and I get, like, even more mad at myself. I'm like, "You just let, like, worrying too much about enjoying that moment or not being on your phone or being on your phone too much ruin the fucking moment."
yeah,
What the heck?
without a doubt. It's such a cyclical like headspace to be in, and
Yeah.
it's so hard to break out of that.
Yeah, every time my dad or a brother called me, immediately I'm like, "What's wrong?" And they're like, "I'm just calling to" I'm like, "No, what's wrong? What's going on? Is something happening?" And sometimes, unfortunately, it's bad news.
Mm,
But I'm
Yeah.
like, but yeah, if the phone is ringing and I'm not expecting a phone call, like, especially, my kids, I have 3 kids. If the school's phone number comes up, I'm like, "Oh my
same.
gosh, what's happening?" Like, it just instantly, I can just feel my heart just start racing before I've even, picked up the phone, so
Yeah, I'm the same way too. And I've gotten bad calls from school. My son like
right.
ended up breaking his wrist
Yeah.
and then all this stuff. And I'm like, come on. And we just started skiing 2 weeks ago. And the second day we were out, he broke his arm
Oh,
again, the same
no.
arm.
Oh my
And
gosh, that happened to my daughter.
yeah, it was wild. Like, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, he broke his arm, got an infection all over his face, and got sick within 2 weeks.
Oh
So
my
now he's on
gosh.
antibiotics for 2 months to try to clear up this infection.
Oh
But
my
it's that
god.
same like visceral reaction. So I'm like running around in my ski boots trying to find ski patrol to get him there. And it's just, even if it's not like a life-threatening situation, my body feels like everything is a life-threatening situation.
Mhm.
It's so
Yeah.
frustrating. But the past 5 years, as you've kind of gone on this journey and have experienced a vast amount of emotions and kind of progressing through this, what has that looked like for you, and what have been some of the milestones in your grief where you're like, "Oh, something has changed for the better that's more beneficial now?" And how do you view your grief?
In the beginning, it was just a lot of just haze and confusion,
Mhm.
a lot of anger, a lot of guilt. Also, I just felt so incredibly guilty, and that took quite a while to get over, and I'm just, working through, with counselors, like, how do I still live every day, everything that I have to do? Like, I have to get up and go to work, and I have to raise these kids still, and I have a husband, and I have all this, like, responsibility, and how am I supposed to do that with all of this feeling inside?
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I did, a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. I read a lot of books. I got the grief handbook, which was really helpful it's kind of like a journal of how you're progressing through grief in the different stages.
Oh,
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I recommend it to anybody going through it, especially in the beginning phases. But I found that it definitely helped me. Well, at the beginning, I had to compartmentalize, where there were times where I could let myself just be a total mess. My mom always used to say that when I was a little kid, I'd be mopey or grumpy or having a bad day, and she'd go, "Honey, maybe you just need a good cry." And I'd be like, "Well, I don't even know what I want to cry about." Like, you'll find something. Like, it'll just come out. So,
Mm.
there'll
I
be
kinda
days
love
where
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
right? Like,
seriously.
really cathartic, just
Yeah.
like, okay. And so I compartmentalized, right? Like, there were times where I would say, "Okay, I'm gonna listen to 5 sad songs and I'm gonna cry and or I'm gonna try to do something that she really liked to do and I'm gonna muscle through it and I'm not gonna cry." I'm gonna make sure my kids really feel that love that's like a generational love coming from, their grandparents who are still here and how much extended family means to them and just asking them, do you feel loved enough today? Because I want to make sure that they feel that every day. And then just understanding more and more about mental health and the things that drive people to do the things that they do and act the way they act. So,
Mhm.
a lot of, external research, a lot of introspection. There's still some things I can't do 5 years later. I can't listen to Journey, Don't Stop Believing, which is really tough because it's one of the most played songs of all time. I'll just start bawling.
What's
I
significant about that song?
My mom loved Journey, and when I say she loved Journey, I mean loved him. Like, if she could have kidnapped Steve Perry and kept him in a closet in her house, legally, she would have. The first time that she had her hemorrhage and she was unconscious, my cousin was playing Journey the entire time in her ICU room.
Oh.
And that was one of the first things that she remembered when she woke up, is she was like, "Have you guys been here the whole time?" And we're like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, I remember hearing Journey, but I don't remember everybody being here." So
Oh my
Mm.
she
gosh.
just she just loved them so much. And so that's, one song I can't listen to. I just now this on my last birthday, because I turned 40, I was able to go back and listen to the last voicemail that she sent me where she's saying happy birthday to me. And I listened to it, but I just cried the entire time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I got all her belongings from my uncle, all her pictures and everything that she kept from when we were little kids, and just the things that she found to be sentimental, like, you know, understanding, like,
Yeah.
why some of those things would have meant so much to her. And then just, we were able to a couple years ago, me and my dad and my brother were able to actually spread our ashes. So after COVID, after the pandemic, we could travel and be together again. So my dad and my brother went up to this lake that she always talked about being like the prettiest place she ever saw, and it was the best camping trip she ever went on. So we went up to the lake and spread her ashes there together.
Oh, wow. Is there rituals or meaningful things, whatever word you
Mhm.
wanna put to that, that you do to connect back to her or her memory? And what is that?
I do. So my mom loved bingo, like obsessively loved bingo, and she loved like the scratchers, like lotto scratchers. So every year for Mother's Day and her birthday and on Christmas, uh, me and the kids will do the scratchers together.
No, I love that.
Yeah, and she had this necklace that I gave to her for her birthday one year, and it was her name in gold, and it was like the same style of necklace that Carrie on Sex and the City had, and it's a Carrie. It was like a gold necklace, and she always talked about how like I really want one of those, but those are probably like Hollywood. They're so expensive, whatever. And I'm like, I can get that on Etsy. So I got one with her name on it and I got it for her and she was so excited. But then after she passed, my brother sent it back to me. So I wear it on her birthday and I wear it on the day that
No.
she passed.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, I just try to do little things like that. Like on our book, on our mantle or like on our shelves at home, I keep, uh, Guess How Much I Love You, the book on there all the time
Mhm.
because she always used to say that. That was, like, our thing. So she'd, "Guess how much I love you?" And I would go, "This much." And she's like,
Oh,
"Yep, all the way to the moon and back." So I keep
Uh,
that, and I would read it to the kids. And so little moments like that. And then other moments where it's just kind of a silent thing, like, if we go somewhere my husband's really big on, like, national parks. So if we go somewhere where it's just unimaginable beauty, it's like, oh, I wish she could have seen it. So just have, like, a little moment to ourselves there.
that's amazing.
yeah, that's awesome, and it's awesome that you're keeping her memory alive for your kids. Like,
Yeah,
they will know
trying.
her through all those things. Yeah, I mean, you're doing everything you've described is you're doing an amazing job. It's not easy to do, I know that. It's really hard because life gets very, very busy, and trying to take those moments is significant
Yeah.
in a busy life. So that's incredible.
Sometimes I think that we like minimize how
Mhm.
those little things are really like keeping our memory alive, you know? My husband's dad died when he was 7. So yeah, he was 7, I was 9. And tomorrow is his angelversary, death anniversary. So we're
Mm.
we're just gonna
Aw.
go out to dinner. Normally when we're in Buffalo, we go for a beef on weck, but we probably won't find that here in the Netherlands.
No.
So
In the
we're gonna
Netherlands? Oh my goodness.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, we're in the Netherlands for the year, so, so we might go for Indonesian, but the point around, just making sure to celebrate it, you don't have to do something big, but at least, you remember that day or honor that day and honor them.
Yeah.
And I think birthdays and anniversaries and, even just days or holidays that they liked, I think is so important to and
Mhm.
I think we've talked about it before. It's like you don't have to do it every year.
Right.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like this year I don't even want to fucking think about it. Or like this year I'm busy and we're doing something else. So
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to be such a big thing. But I also like so resonate with like the songs, which weirdly for me is like one of the hymns they played at her funeral. And like,
Oh,
Mm,
yeah.
um,
really?
yeah, on Eagle's Wings or whatever. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that song, if it comes I mean, I don't go to church, like, every Sunday. I mean, I don't go to church, like, more than twice a year, but, if that song comes on, I literally can't like, it is like a light switch. Like,
Mhm.
I just fucking die. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god," it's so anytime but it's often played at funerals, and so anytime I go to a funeral, if I
Yeah.
see that it's, like, on the, like,
The program?
agenda for
Yeah.
the day, the program, thank you. I'm like, "I gotta go." Yeah, like,
Mhm.
right before
Mhm.
that song comes on, I'm walking out because I know that we played it at her funeral, and I can't remember, like, exactly when we played it. I wanna say it was when we were walking out, and I was literally buried in my grandma's, like, side just crying, but
Mhm.
it's also, like, certain smells for me that, like,
Yes.
it's I had someone give me, like, a flower for my birthday a few years ago, And I felt so bad because it literally I was like, "This smells like the funeral home." Like, the day of her
Oh,
fu
Oh,
like, the
yeah.
yeah.
and like, I knew like, I think I had been talking about how I really wanted, like, a flower for my desk or something, and I had to tell my friend, I was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I'm gonna buy a different flower to put on my desk from you because I just can't, like, do this smell." So
Yeah.
there's certain flowers and I don't even think it was the same flower. I just think it happened to just smell exactly the wrong way.
I mean, you say that and I can smell
Yeah.
it right now. I
Yeah,
know that
right?
smell. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Mhm. I know I was in Target with my mother-in-law, like, a couple weeks ago, and somebody walked by me, and I could just the perfume, and I was like, "Oh, oh my
Yeah.
gosh." And my mother was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, that person is wearing my mom's perfume." I'm like, "I'm gonna have a" I was like, I got all hot and like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm gonna cry. I know I'm gonna cry." She's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, those I think the scent was like the biggest thing that was a little bit of like a mind fuck for me. I was just like, "Whoa. Like how does this like bring you back?" But I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like a lot of research or science behind it, but it's still just
Mhm.
it was it also obviously caught me off guard in that moment, but yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. Smells haven't been big for me,
No?
but definitely no. And I don't know why, but music,
Mhm.
TV shows where I used to never rewatch shows ever. So against it. I'm like, this is terrible. I don't want to waste my time. After my wife died, that's all I do is rewatch the shows that we would watch
Mhm.
and just cry at those, even comedy shows, and I
Yeah.
just bawl. And then the other thing that really gets me is my daughter. So she's 16 now,
Mhm.
and she looks just like my wife,
Yeah,
and
she
her
does.
mannerisms are the same. Like the way she jokes with me is the same.
Yeah.
Like her humor's the same. And there are moments where literally I have to do a double take because I'm like, holy shit, you look just like your mother.
Right.
Where it like just brings me right back to because we were high school sweethearts. So we started dating
Oh,
when we were teenagers. So it just brings me right back. So that's a
yeah.
huge thing for me too. But what are the challenges that you found that surprised you with grief?
I it's the biggest challenge I would say for the first year, I probably for the first year was just existing. Just
Yeah,
just knowing every day it was a day, especially the day right after. Everybody got up and got to do what they got to do, you know? Every everybody got their coffee and went to work and went to school and sat in traffic and had to pay bills and did all the things, and I was just completely immobilized, and I felt so guilty because my husband and I were taking a vacation that we had planned for almost a year, and we were getting ready to leave that next day, and I was like, "I can't go on this vacation. There's no way." And my brother's like, "Mom wanted you to go. Like you totally have to go. Like this is the first time you and Jordan have been alone forever. You gotta go." And I was like, "I can't. There's no way I can go." And so we went, and I was just like
That's so hard.
there, but not there.
yeah,
And then coming back, and then going up and doing the ceremony, and then like, okay, how do I get back to a point of just functioning where I'm not breaking down every single day? And I knew it was gonna be heavy, but I think the part that I struggled with the most was that it felt so heavy because I had 5 years, and you might relate to
yes,
it as well as, like, I had 5 years to get ready for this, like, it coulda happened at any moment and almost did several times, like, this should not have been it shouldn't have felt like a shock, and it shouldn't have felt sudden, and it shouldn't have felt, like, so shocking, but it did, and I felt bad in a sense that I was so upset by it, but then I also felt this, like, tremendous grief that it was almost a
a
relief
relief.
also.
Yes, yes,
I
Yeah.
wasn't like, I knew I didn't want her to be in pain. I knew I didn't want her suffering. I knew I didn't want me and my brother and our kids to go through that pain, but I was relieved, and I felt so terrible for feeling relieved
Mm.
also. So it was just yeah, it was there were just so many emotions that were bouncing around all at the same time that it took about a year to get back to a place where it was like regular, homeostasis achieved with just this little bit of every once in a while sadness coming in and sometimes bigger than others, but
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah,
There
same.
was that guilt of like, I mean, immediately as soon as she took her
Mhm.
last breath, there was this like weight that came off of me of like,
Yeah.
okay, she's not suffering anymore. We don't have to go through this anymore. We can figure out life now. But
Mhm.
also the weight of it was crushing like every day. And I looked because I track all my health metrics and I slept on average 3 hours a night for an entire first year. And yeah, that haze, that like not knowing like what one moment to the next moment's gonna feel like, what's gonna hit you, what's not gonna hit you, and like sorting all that out is definitely difficult, and I think a pretty common thing. Do you feel like you got to say goodbye to your mom? I know she passed when you after the conversation, but I think like try to abstract that a little bit from the physical goodbye, mom. Do you feel like you got to say goodbye to her?
No. And
Mm,
I say that because the version of our mom that passed isn't the version of my mom that I wanted or would have wanted to do like a big teary emotional goodbye with. You know what I mean? Like I would have wanted that moment to occur very like terms of endearment, holding the
yeah,
hands and honey, it's going to be like your life is going to go on. You're going to be amazing and I'm going to be here in every moment and that wasn't that wasn't what we got. So,
Yeah.
I don't think so and I felt like that last conversation that we had, it ended so, there was so much anger and frustration and love and passion all in the same call.
Yeah.
And then, I went to bed late because I was like stressed out about the situation and I knew it was going to be a situation in the morning when, when she got up to go to the doctor, she was going to be upset and I was going to talk to her after she was done. And then I popped awake at about 3 o'clock in the morning, just in sheer panic out of nowhere.
Mm.
And I was like, "I don't understand." Like, I would just feel like I'm gonna bust out of my skin. I don't know what's going on. So it took about an hour and a half to kinda settle back down and go to bed, and then, the coroner's report said basically sometime between, like, 1 and 4 AM. So
mm,
I was like, "Oh, is that, like,
Mhm.
her way of telling me, like, okay, I just left you," and now I was like I could feel that, like,
yeah,
string just being pulled, and I was like, "Oh, I'm untethered now.
Yep.
I'm
yeah,
in this moment, I'm a fundamentally different person than I was when I went to bed."
Yep. Without a
yeah,
doubt. Yeah, and that is also a common experience. We change
Mhm,
who we have an identity crisis in the
mhm,
beginning, and we have to
yes,
rediscover who we are. And that was one of the most surprising things to me was feeling that of like, "Well, where did I go? I don't even know who I
yeah.
am. I don't know who that person is looking in the other side of the mirror." And
Well,
it's
and if
just
you've
been
been a
this journey.
caretaker for so long,
Mhm.
yeah.
now
Yeah,
what do you do with all of this
exactly.
time and energy? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was wild. But we appreciate you sharing. Before you go, if you want to, we would love to hear maybe a favorite story or a memory that you really love that you had with your mom.
I just love to remember when she was the best mom, she was the best mom. All of the kids in our
Oh, so
neighborhood
nice. Of
came to
Mm,
our house. It was the house that they felt the most loved and safe in. And, she'd bake everybody chocolate chip cookies and make hamburgers
all
from
that.
scratch. And she'd make a full turkey dinner in July because
oh
why
my
only have
god.
that big meal once a
Oh
year
my gosh.
when you could have
Holy
turkey for
shit.
a week and you don't have to turn on the oven, She worked at a pet store and we had so many animals at our house. She would just bring home all of the animals. We had so many animals in our house and yeah, she was hilarious. She was just so funny and so vibrant and everybody who knew her just loved her so much.
Do you now have animals? for your
I have
kids?
there's no way that I could have that many animals. I am so allergic.
Okay.
Oh my
So
gosh.
very, so very allergic. I have one dog who's thankfully hypoallergenic, but we're kind of a one animal at a time. I mean, our front and backyard was like a pet cemetery. Like we had so many animals.
Oh
And
my
not like
gosh.
the
Wow.
long-lasting kind either.
Yeah,
So fish and birds and hamsters and ferrets and cats and dogs and just everything. So yeah, if there was an animal around, it was automatically drawn to her. She just had a magnetism for it.
that's amazing.
Oh,
That's
that is
that's so
amazing.
awesome. Well, thank you. Like I said, thank you for coming on.
Thank
We
you both so
appreciate,
much.
yeah, we're just grateful that you're willing to share. I think it's really good for other people to kind of hear and normalize grief. It needs to
Yes,
be normalized. So
absolutely.
without people like you, we couldn't do this. So thank you so much. I'm glad we got to work this out, and we appreciate you sharing your mom with us as well.
And thank you for being there in the community for people like me who were desperately searching for somebody having a relatable experience. So I thank you both so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Day After. You can find this podcast and more at our website at www.thedayafter.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts.